Hey everybody, I'm just going to post out that I'm streaming here, and we'll get going with some new stuff tonight. Hey everybody, I'm just going to post out that I'm streaming here, and we'll get going with some new stuff tonight. Hey everybody, I'm just going to post out that I'm streaming here,
Scaling.
and we'll get going with some new stuff tonight. Hey everybody, I'm just going to post out that. Alright. Now let's see if my scaling has worked. So I have this second NX9K that I've just pushed into the repository. And let me mute this computer. And we'll get started here. So I don't need to push anything anymore, and there was no code change to my main repository, or my main code. But what we're going to do is go into the tests. So first of all, let's pull down. Right, so now I have core 1 and core 2. And if we focus on the JSON, what I'd like to do is go over this list of files and set the unique values as the various host names, and then loop over every found host name in the directory for tests. So we're going to go into the tests, and I've changed things around here. So I'm using the .env, which is python-env to pip install load.environment, and I'm loading .environment. And then I'm getting all of my credentials from an environment file. And in my git ignore file, I've added the PyCache and the environment. So now I never have to worry about accidentally pushing my credentials into the repository. So what we're going to do is we're going to comment out. Let's just do the version test. So the kickstart and the version test, and actually, so we're going to comment out everything else below this. And to do that, you highlight everything, and then it's shift, like shift slash, control slash. So now that I've commented everything out, let's focus on one test. So what I do is call self.hostname equals getHostname. And that's not going to work anymore because I'm getting, and that getHostname here returns self.hostname. So actually what we could do is, this actually will be, let's just print it. Let's print self.hostname and see if it's an array, a list of host names. So print self.hostname. And I believe it will be. And let's just comment out our tests for now. And just, we'll do this incrementally. So let's, why is my terminal's not answering here? So we're going to run the code. And let's just print that list of host names. Oh, prepare test case. I haven't been adding code to this, but I don't think that's a necessary. Let's just comment it out for now and see if I can run the version check. I think this might be unnecessary code. Right, okay, so that is what I expected. I have a list of hosts here. Now that's not going to work anymore as self.hostname. So let's change this to be list of host names, and then we're going to do what we're going to do in our test here, and let's uncomment out our test. Hang on, I shouldn't do it that way. Let's take a look at where those host names are used, and I think it's just going to be a for loop here. And let's just limit this to one test. So what I'm doing here is for the NX version, right, and I'm looping over the version files. Oh, this is going to be the same thing here. Show version. Yeah, I need to do more than just, let's deal with the host names for now. But I'll have to come back to this show version because it's that's not going to work either. So we're going to need to adjust both of these. So if show version is in the item name, show version equals the raw JSON content. So what I'm going to need to do here is move this show version info here, and I'm going to need to match the host name. So we're going to have a list of host names, and for each item in the repo that's JSON, self version info. So we're going to have to call the host names first, and then we're going to pass in the host name into this function. Let's do that. So for host name in list of host names, go ahead and get the version and pass in host name. And then in our function for get version, we're going to take host name in, why that's not lighting up blue, host name not accessible by pilots. So if the host name show version is in the item name, set the show version raw content and return it. So we may want to move this under each of the tests. So for each host name in list of host names, self dot list of host names, self dot list of host names, set the version info. Is it that simple? I don't know. Let's try it. So we're going to need to move everything under the for loop. Like that. As well as the logging info to print out to the screen. All of it needs to be moved over under the for loop. So for each host name do these tests and call these other functions. And then instead of self.hostname, we're going to append the host name, the host name. Let's try that. Let's try that. Missing parameter host name in scope of getShowVersion class. So it doesn't like this host name. In the getShowVersion, but I thought I was passing that as a parameter. Here. Maybe we can move this setup file out. And call it like that. We don't need self there. We can just call this list of host names. And do for host name in list of host names. And then for each item, let's try it that way. And then we're going to have to return it each time. Let's change, we'll put that return under the if statement. Now I'm further down here for hostname and self.list of hostnames. Right, oh yeah, I don't need to do that here anymore. I need to call getShowVersion. Okay, so I don't need that. I'm going to call get self.getShowVersion, and then I'm going to bring all of this back. No, I want to call it on the loop. So I want to call list of host names equals that. For host name in that list, call the getShowVersion. And the getShowVersion goes back to normal. I still need to pass in the host name though for each show version. Thanks for joining the stream. I'm trying to scale things out of bounds again. Missing parameter host name and scope of the get version class. But I have host name right there. And I want to pass it the host name. Not sure if that's going to work. That's probably not going to work. I think I need self-defined for the function. Return show version. Okay, so hang on, let's see here. We have core 1. So I'm sort of back to a single file, but I was hoping starting section NXOS version, it should be doing that in a loop. Let's print list of host names here. Right, so there's my 2 host names. For host name in list of host names, get the version info passing the host name. And it works for the first key. It should be do I need to say dot items here? Maybe. Has no attribute dot items. Well, what if we do a print of host name here and get rid of this print? I'm loading in the first one. I'm just not sure why it's not looping for each host name in my list of host names. Maybe I need to make it an array. There's core 2. Okay, now core 1 isn't running. Do I need to maybe make host name, list of host names, an array? I'm still not quite sure why. let me comment out everything else for now. Let's just get the host names working. List of host names. Print list of host names. For host name and list of host names, print the host names. Okay, that is working. So why is the rest of the data not working? Let's do this one at a time here. So I know that's working, and I know that's working. And let's print self.version.info. Now I should get two different show version outputs based on the host name, unless this function is wrong. But I should get two sections of 1, 2. I'm not sure where this is breaking down. Table data. Okay, now let's not worry about the pass-fail. Let's just see what we can get for a table and see if this is breaking down here. I'm dancing around to the right solution though. I am iterating over the proper host names. So it's something in the table for sure. Something's breaking down here because my table only has the single core. And I should get two separate tables. Unless I need to erase. Oh no, I am. There's core 2. There's core 1. Okay, so far so good here, right? Let me run that again without the JSON print. And I should get two tables with the two versions from the two cores. There's core 2, there's core 1. Now, let me blank out the table here after we print it. Let's erase the table data. Oh no, it should be erased up here. Append row. For each host name, I should be getting its own table. And I sort of am. Let's take this out of the for loop and put it up here. So I'm not erasing it as part of the loop. There we go. Not really. want two nice individual tables. And I'm not quite getting it. That's a little better. Yeah, and it's just printing them back to back. All right, so that's sort of working. Let's move into the testing. And see if this is already working. Right, so if self failed, so is that all part of this loop? It is. So let's try it again. See, so it's only testing one device. So for each loop, it should be resetting that failed version. Should be working in a loop. I'm not, and my loop is, so why is it, okay, so there's core 1. And why does it finish up the job? Why does it not loop into core 2 and make the table and then run the tests? I'm not sure why. Let me comment this back out again, and have to look at why. Let's loop that out and run it again and see if I get 2 tables and 2 host names. There's table 1 and a host name. There's table 2 and a host name. Okay, so far so good. Now let's just do the one statement at a time here. So if failed NXOS, we're going to print, and these are passing. print failed, else print hostname passed. So I should get 2 passed host names now. If I can write my formatted string properly. Core 1 passed, core 2 passed. So like, so far so good. So let's do self passed. And we'll leave that failed commented out for now. So it's the self.passed that is failing here. Passed. So it's like as soon as I hit passed, it doesn't finish the loop and move into the next loop. Test self.passed loop. Looping sections. Oh, do I need to say test.loop here? test.loop. With the so up here instead of aetest.loop. All right, let's take a look here. So what we're going to say, have a setup session. Setup section and this test case to run once. All right, so and then instead of aetest.test, I'm going to have at aetest.loop. And then our test. Let's try that. It's hitting past and it's not finishing the loop. It sort of breaks, the past is breaking out of the loop. Well, that didn't even, that actually was not good. Well, see, they're having test 1 and test 2. I don't know how many tests there's going to be in my loop. It depends on the number of host names in my loop. And I don't know how to, if I can do that with a decorator. So this is definitely not required here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, to scale this out, or I'm going to have to do some thinking about it. Because when I'm hitting dot past of just my simple test that's not a loop, version check passed, when I'm hitting this dot past, it's breaking out of my for loop here. Everything works until I hit this self dot past. Right? Like if I comment this out and rerun it, it will definitely print both host names and both tables. But when I hit dot past, yeah, see, look, that works just fine. So it's this self dot past. And I can see here, loop the test section, both iterations are run per test case iteration. But, and that's right, what to test. But I don't know how, I don't think I can pass in variables into this decorator, can I? Well, I may be at not a dead end, but I might need to reach out for some help or figure out why test this. So it's like treating it as a section here. Default result for all sections is passed. No, I want to see why dot passed is breaking my loop here. Do I need to maybe make this a subsection instead of a test? But I want it as a test. Subsection. Subsection. I don't know, let me just try it as subsection. I don't know why the past is breaking the loop. Okay, so it can't be subsection. You know, it was all working, all my logic is fine. It's just that this self.past is actually just ending the whole section. Do I have to do this? AE test dot setup. Let me go to my version control and see what I had set up before. So we're going to, the setup for the version check. Can I do it that way? And again, I'm trying to hack around with something that I'm pretty sure was going to work. But the past is breaking me out. So let's just see if I've completely broken the printout by doing that. Line 105, self.version.info. Self.version.info. I thought that would be passing self.version.info. And I wasn't too sure how easy this would be. I thought I was off to the races, but that self.past is busting my loop. Otherwise, it all would have been working by now, but now I've got to find a way around that. Alright, so host name, NXOS version. I had it. I was pretty close, and then that stupid past is busting everything. I don't know if this, let's see. Do it that way. none. Alright, let me undo a bunch of this. I'll go back to where I had it, where it was failing. Let's see if I can figure out how to get around this. Okay, right? Like, I can print that they passed and they passed and I get the nice tables for each, but as soon as I say self.passed here, unless I can maybe move that self.passed, and I assume the same thing is going to happen with self.failed. So maybe I can set some flag. But the same thing's going to happen on each call every time I hit .failed, I assume. Alright, let's just selectively uncomment some of this out. And we'll just see if we can, let's see what happens with this run without calling. We may have a way around this to call the past failed as a separate function at the end of all the looping. Right, so then skipped, passed, and then it just stops, right? So I'm only checking one version, I assume. So skipped is doing the same thing. So any of these .skipped, .passed, .failed ends the whole section. So I do need to figure out that looping mechanism by adding a loop to the start of it. But I think the loop needs variables here to say what to loop over. Let me just make that a loop. See if this has any effect on the past failed. See, that breaks it right away. So like I was trying to think about, maybe could I do a setup section here at aetest.setup. And call the list of host names.
Recovery was tough, and from the outset things were not quite what Laura had hoped for. The day of surgery, the surgeon was discussing what size I was going to be. He said, oh, I think we can get you to a D. And I said, that's fine, I don't want to be bigger than a D. And then when I came out, they were a 34F. The implants may have been bigger than expected, but Laura was pleased.
Right, no, what I can do here, Can I just do this?
When I lost weight again, the smaller
What's the
implant
looping
then became
code again?
visibly smaller than the bigger one because there was less natural fat around it.
Just 6 months
UIDs.
after having implants, Laura's hope of a perfect figure was smashed. She needed corrective surgery.
The surgeon was really good again. He agreed to change the implant. It was free of charge.
Still uncomfortable with her F cup, she also asked the surgeon for a reduction.
He was quite dismissive because he said, now that you've had big boobs, if I put a smaller implant in, when you'll come back to me in 6 months' time and say, actually, I want them bigger.
The patient's social relationships with doctors not perfect. Surgery could take time, and for worse and fast growing times, people communicate great with the surgeon and all through it. The problem arises when you have different expectations. In other words, patients unhappy because they expect something different.
The surgeon told Laura that a reduction would cost even more as she would also need an uplift. So Laura went ahead with the replacement.
After my
Why can't I do that?
surgery, I looked myself up for a bodybuilding competition. So as soon as I got the go ahead to exercise, I was following a plan that was 5 times a week cardio, 5 times a week in the gym, and I was on a horrible diet.
By now, she was at the peak of her fitness. The competition was a success. But behind the scenes, all was not well.
I started noticing that I was just constantly tired, my hair was falling out.
Laura had begun to believe that her implants were the cause of a serious health problem, and things would only get worse. To improve their body confidence, some people turn to cosmetic surgery.
People are more anxious today about the way that they look because social media feeds us images constantly and they tell you what we should look like.
But when you're in the spotlight, the pressure to look good can be massively amplified. Social media puts pressure on us all, but with millions of followers commenting on every post, celebs can be the hardest hit. Abby Clark joined the cast of The Only Way is Essex back in 2013, and she quickly discovered how life
Um,
her self-esteem.
I wasn't naturally blessed with big lips. I think the pressures of being on screen and the pressures of social media really did kind of affect how I felt about my lips, how I kind of saw my face.
Within celebrity circles, there's a lot of pressure. People are going to big events or they've had a nasty comment on their social media and immediately it's forced them to feel bad about themselves and wanting to change that particular aspect.
We treat people from reality shows all the time. Invariably, it starts becoming a bit of a pattern. They're all homogenizing their shape of lips or shape of nose. Some of the most physically attractive people in the world are actually deeply insecure, and as a result, they're very vulnerable to cosmetic surgery.
Abby was contacted by a high street clinic, and she accepted their offer of lip filler.
I was absolutely fine. I was thinking, yeah, great. And then 2 weeks later,
Find a list iteration IDs using IDs argument.
all this lumps here, and then it started to get worse and worse and worse.
Surprisingly, the clinic did little to help her.
A lot of practitioners don't have the qualifications or even know how to take filler out. Their advice, massage, fill it out.
Whoever did it
AE test.loop.
serious problem.
The more
Maybe I
massaged
can do
it
that.
was getting, and the worse it was becoming. It was very swollen, lumpy, kind of blistering, ulcers. I just didn't feel like myself at all.
Naturally, this affected Abby's work.
I did actually do some filming and they couldn't even film my face.
Abby turned to cosmetic specialist Dr. Tinshaw Lecho.
When I took the look, I was very shocked. I'd never seen filler cause that type of reaction in the lip. And my first instance was what was used here. This was not something that was regulated or CE marked or FDA.
Must provide an argument to loop on.
Sensitive area. And some people try and get around the fact that it won't last as long in the lips as filler anywhere else. The reason for that is because you've got to use a natural product. So some people try and get around
Hey Dan, yeah,
it. It's not.
now that I have some people, maybe you can I'll show you what's happening here. So what's happening is I have it working. I thought I was well on my way. Meaning what I've done is I have two files now in my output, a core 1 and a core 2. And what I want to do is loop over them and run tests at scale. I sort of thought I would try to tackle my scale tonight. I have one device working no problem, but can I do it on n number of devices? And it looks like I was on my way. So here we go, right? So there is core 1 and core 2 and the nice tables for each core 1 and core 2, and I'm just printing out passed and passed. But as soon as I hit a self dot passed, failed, skipped, whatever, it treats it as if that test case is done. So I'll show you here. If I uncomment out the passed, it's only going to print passed and one table and then wrap up that section. So I don't know, I've been looking into the loop, and the loop requires UID arguments to loop over, but I want to do it dynamically. I don't want to so there it goes, see? So it only prints core 2 passed, and it wraps up the test as passed, and then moves along and only does one file at one host name. And I've narrowed it down to this self.passed. I'm still inside of a for loop here. But as soon as I hit self.passed, it tells AE test to wrap up the test section and move along to the next bit of code. So you can do test.loop, or even outside of this, I could put a decorator on the outside and say .loop. But that requires me to pass in UIDs. And I don't know enough about decorators if I could put my decorator inside of the for loop. I don't think so. So, because I have, it works up till I add the dot passed here. So I'm not sure. Marking this both as a test section and being looped, right? So if I do dot loop UIDs equals, and then an array here, can I call this function? I don't think so. Right? So self, it doesn't like the self there. Can I call this function here? I don't know. I'm sort of at a standstill here. I don't know how best to build the UIDs. They're all hard coded in the examples. I don't see anywhere. What if I do hard code it? Core, what is it, 01 and 02? Core 01, Core 02. What am I doing wrong here? Loop equals UIDs equals. Oh, I didn't close that. All right, let's try it hard coded. I don't know that this is going to make any difference, but I'm sort of stuck on how to scale this beyond a single test. I don't want to have a single PI file per device to test. I want to load in 1 to the n number of devices based on their host name.
They want to choose whether that's as a YouTube vlog
Well, that did
or
loop.
a temporary fame when those
So
are
that did loop. But the problem is I have to know the file name. And it did the same device both times. So yes, I'm running.
and so then don't like get the
Oh no, hang on. Do I still have it commented out?
you want to look real
The past? No, so self.past. So that did not break it out. And I can see, so here's section core 1 past, core 2 past, but it's doing the same device. And I need to know the name of devices to test, which might not be the end of the world. I was preferring this to be fully dynamic. And I can't seem to pass self in here. It hates self. If I have like self dot something, see, it just doesn't want that.
we have to draw the line. For example, if you have a woman who's coming in saying she wants breasts the size of balloons, and then you ask why you want that big, well, she says, I'm going to become famous with these. I mean, sure, you might
Can I feed in args
gain from that,
per AE test loop?
breast size.
I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure. It looks like it needs to be hard coded, and now I don't know how to connect the argument here, the UID, with the particular loop I'm on, unless I have something like
We are talking an actual operating theatre with trained surgeons that have
um,
appearance,
instead of list of host names.
huge life risk.
Technically, if I'm going to hard code it like this, I don't even need this get host name section, right? So let me get rid of that and change this to UIDs. See, and that's not working either.
Become quite obsessed with changing their styles to the point where
Let me just.
they're actually working to pay for the
So hang on. Let me. Whoa.
surgery has got cheaper,
Ah.
but it's still not cheap.
Let me get rid of this for loop since it seems redundant at this point.
This is where we need to be very, very careful in life in general, knowing when to say stop.
Which means I need to refactor a bit of code up above as well. So let me try to bring this out of the for loop, since I'm going to be using the AE test loop function. And I got to get rid of this host name for
You can't expect patients to know all the ins and outs of the requests, the positive downside.
the UID it's on.
It's our job to try to explain that to patients. So if they say, listen, I want to look like, Jessica Rabbit, that makes
I mean, can I say host name equals UID? Right? Like I don't know how to access this decorator. That's going to loop over for each test, but and I could get rid of the show version for the host name. No, you see, I need to access that UIDS, and they don't really show.
Unfortunately for some people, the end result can be shocking.
Almost 50% of my practice is corrective treatments. I see this a lot, and it's been a trend that has not gone down.
As one young woman discovered.
Had a lump in my left breast, and it was starting to really.
I'm relying on that host name from the file too much. I don't think I can do that.
Had gone on a health kick.
I was exercising a lot. I had a personal trainer.
So this is
Started to shrink as well.
not what I was hoping for. Unless I have to ask somebody from the PyETS teams. I believe you can use the pass in as the names of the individual tests.
What I would call half boobs. So I just
Right. So all that is the name of the test.
having such small saggy
And it does,
So Laura had
you know,
but they were a disaster. After 6 months, she
sort of works.
decided breasts and needed
but
Changed the implant, it was free of charge.
I'm getting the last iteration of the loop here.
So that they were
So I wish I could build this dynamically from the host names files,
Ask for him. She believes
or from the devices I'm getting in this list of host name for host name and list of host names.
I had food intolerance.
You know, I don't know, can I move this decorator down?
Muscle pains, my back every time. If I got a cold,
No.
the whole part of my lower back in agony.
So I'm sort of limited when I hit dot past here. It's just, it's completely breaking me out of this for loop. I don't know why it's structured this way.
Following a plan that was 5 times a
And
week,
it looks like I'm,
5 times a week in the gym, and I was a horrible.
no, you've got your stream tonight, Danny. Maybe, I know tomorrow's Friday night and the last thing you want to do is code, but if you're around tomorrow night, we could maybe get together. I'm going to wrap things up. I've been going at it for a little bit here. And everything was going smooth sailing. I was like, okay, great. I have my loop per host name. I can print it. I can print that it passed. But as soon as I trigger a skipped, passed, failed, it treats it as the whole section of code, this whole test, as being complete. And regardless of that I'm in a for loop or not. So I'll just do this again. And I'm pretty sure that's what happens. When I hit the dot past, it wraps up the whole... Okay, yeah, hit me up tomorrow, Danny, and good luck with your stream. I'll try to tune in a little later. I usually watch a bit of it in bed. But in the back of your mind, you see it's just wrapping up the whole test because I hit dot past. Now, unless maybe I could move the self past outside of this loop and pass it based on something else, call another function that determines whether or not it passed or failed, and do each test. But then I don't get the results I want. I want for each of my host names. I suppose I could say, do all hosts, print all tables, and use a flag to say, if that flag is set, call dot past. Right, wherever I say here, if self equals self version, right? If it doesn't equal it, set a flag, and then if that flag is true, trigger the self failed, and take this outside of the for loop. What if I do that? What if I take this code out of the for loop? And that I think that I always tend to overthink things here. I think if we take that out of the for loop, right, and then if anything fails, but otherwise treat it, let's try it. If I take that check out of the loop, so I should get two tables here. One table, two tables, and then treat the whole section as a pass or fail. Which might be better, right? Test every device. And where's my printouts here? And then let's see if I can trigger my failed check and my WebEx check. And let me uncomment out everything here. Alright, let's see what happens here with this outside of the loop. And then if any of my devices fail, trigger my failure and trigger my WebEx. Overthinking it again. So now I should get two nice tables and then the results of every device check is passed. And let's dummy up a failure and see if we can get the failure to happen. Now, where am I still printing that? Print hostname here. So now let's go in and dummy up on device 1, show version as, let's say it's running 3.5. Oh, hang on, I gotta push that up to get scale failure test 1 device. Danny, thank you. Sometimes it's just a matter of having somebody else on board to bounce the idea off of verbally. I may have gotten here eventually, but let's see if that's it, if I just move it out of the for loop.
Breast surgeons have them removed.
Not wanting to be left flat-chested.
Okay, right, so now the whole version check has failed after testing every version, and I get the failed result on that individual device. And did I get a WebEx? I got a WebEx. Now, yeah, you see, I'm going to have to maybe fix this host name so that it tells me just the device that failed. But we're pretty close here. Pretty close. So where's my WebEx coming from? I'm passing self.hostname, and self.hostname should be for hostname in list of host names. Maybe that should be self.hostname so that I can pass it along. And if that works out, then I am at scale. Effectively working at scale. Kind of even better than what I had thought. So let's try it again and see if I can get the WebEx message just to tell me the single device that failed.
It was worth it in the end. Laura is happy with her figure and feels healthy again.
I cannot explain how much of a difference it has made. I can take a deep breath in and hold it and release it, whereas before it felt like someone's pushing on my chest like this the whole time. My hair's not falling out anymore. I wake up and I don't have a hangover. My head is clear. I hardly ever get headaches. I have no lower back pain at all. I'm really, really, really relieved and just so happy that it went well.
Hang on, did that? So this failed. Why didn't that trigger the WebEx this time? Because I just added the self.hostname.
Still to come, how a nightmare began when one woman decided to change her eyes for good.
I thought having makeup on while I'm on the beach without it running down my face sounds amazing.
Hostname is not defined.
Some people turn to dramatic cosmetic procedures in the hunt for a perfect body.
Let me just try to rerun it and make sure that I get a message.
Others are looking for a more subtle change to their looks. Shaping and colouring eyebrows, lips and lashes with semi-permanent makeup. But when the results are what was
Yeah, I'll get the whole lit. So there's the failure.
be a personal disaster.
But my message is going to have both devices. But when I added self.hostname for hostname in, maybe I could set self.hostname equals hostname. And then that should pass it along to the self.hostname here.
Cosmetic tattooing took off.
It's an absolute matter of fashions like hairstyles. You know, 1 year it'll be a different fashion.
Pretty proud of this, figuring all this out. And I was just overthinking things. Okay, so there's my failure message. And now does my WebEx just have the core 1 failure? So we're at scale here. We are at scale here.
His eyebrows.
We really are. Now let's try both devices as failures and both devices as passes just before I wrap things up to make sure I'm not getting too excited for nothing. So let's make that 7.5 as well
Is microblading.
and push that up as 2 device failures.
The results can be great.
And now this is going to work at device 1 device. And actually I should test, well, I don't need to test that. So now let's try 2 device failures, and both messages should fail in the tables.
It's a problem Karen Peak discovered when she had semi-permanent eyeliner to solve a bugbear she had on the beach.
I've always loved my holidays, so when I'm on holiday,
No, I only got 1 failure.
my makeup will come off. I didn't have
Core 1. So why didn't,
semi-permanent makeup.
see, they both failed.
New thing, and I thought, have makeup on while I'm on the beach without running down my face sounds amazing.
While semi-permanent
That's why I want it part of the loop.
Karen was considering something much more risky. Semi-permanent eyeliner. Tattoo like the sunshine.
Because I'm saying
The look that I was after,
self.failed,
to add some definition to the lash
and then it runs in the loop again.
line, so it would make you look
So it never actually reaches any of this other code.
Karen decided to take the plunge.
So that's not quite working at, it is and it isn't working at scale. It's only ever going to give me the last device in the failures, but I want 2 messages. But I'm never going to get 2 messages because of my if version checked is outside of the loop.
Karen's hopes for amazing, hassle-free makeup were about to be dashed.
after I'd had the procedure.
Because I can only trigger it once with the passed or failed.
It was a lot further down, so it sort of went under my eye rather than on the actual eyeliner.
Well,
It was clear that something had gone dreadfully wrong.
it's a start. It's better than nothing. And the whole section is failing, but my WebEx is only ever going to send, if I have multiple failures, I won't be able to get.
Beautician procedures, which of them are cosmetic surgery, which of them are not, which of them require proper technical training and expertise. Because when they go wrong, they can go so
Unless I call the WebEx version check
consequences.
in the loop, because I don't have the failed. Oh, well, we can maybe try that. Move the WebEx. So then I'll only get 1 failed reason. And I could change the failed reason to say one of the devices. It's not great. Under here in the version check.
Karen was left with what
Well,
seemed to be makeup smeared across her face. Permanent.
let's do one problem at a time. Let's get the WebEx going. So if it failed,
Would say that few moments of lying eyeliner.
and if the WebEx room is defined, call the failed WebEx. I need to set the host name first though. So this should give me 2 alarms in WebEx. This should give me 2 alarms in WebEx with each unique host name defined in the WebEx.
News on Karen's
So I should get
visit her horror procedure and contact skin specialist Lorena Oberg. To let
WebEx and the table, WebEx and the table. And then I'll have to come back and deal with the failure message. There we go. Core 1.
Hopefully not getting a result and having a look in the mirror and not to run off.
Let me just set a deletion point, try that again.
rather than travelling to
Did I get 2 or not?
Karen's consultation will be via video chat.
Hi Karen, lovely meeting you. Hi. I've seen the pictures that you sent me. I understand that this is really old eyeliner. Just going to
Hey, thanks for joining from Poland. I really appreciate that. That's pretty cool.
What pigment might be in there.
I'm just trying to get my solution to scale out, and I'm having some problems because of the way PyETS. So where's my deleted message? There's my deleted message, and am I getting 3 messages? Core 1, core 2, core 2. So I must be calling that function twice somewhere.
Is carbon pigment. The laser reads it beautifully, and it's actually quite an easy job. I'm gonna calculate anything from 2 to 4 treatments should make it go 100%.
But removing a tattoo in such a delicate area does have some major
I
problems.
don't know why it's running 3 times.
Ready for the bad news?
I'm only calling it here in the loop, and there's only 2 devices in the loop.
Procedure is brutal. It's tattoo removal from the eye area.
To remove the
So why am I getting the message 3 times?
overtly in Karen's eye to break the pigment down.
Although the risks are very, very low, they're still there. There's a lot of glands in the eye area. It's very thin skin. Lasers can blind you. You obviously need protective equipment, but
Is it always going to run? It should only be running it.
in order to shield
Let me get rid of the AE test
protect your eyesight, I'll need
here.
something called an ocular shield.
Let me get rid of the AE test. Maybe that's why. And I just want to call it as a function as opposed to a test at the end that's always going to run. And let me delete a message just so that I can.
A minute to 3-4 minutes per eye, depending on your
So there's 1.
threshold. So if you're in a
There's
line
2.
to stop, to catch your breath,
And that's all I get. So that's better. That is scaled out. So I get it at WebEx if the version doesn't match. And I actually get, let me look at what my PyLogs look like for this failed version. And let's just take a quick look in here.
If she wants to remove the ugly marks, Karen is going to be subjected to an incredibly painful process.
Oh, nice. So I actually get both tables. And then the failure reason. Now the failure reason again is only going to happen. I should change the message to say at least one of the devices. So we're getting the alarm.
Karen will maybe have words with her younger self.
And one of the, yeah. So let's take a look here at the version check. So outside of the loop, run the version check. I think this is about as good as it's going to get, but it does scale. And I do get the result, NX version has failed. I should probably just change the messaging here to say at least one of the NXOIX or one or more. One or more of the NXOS version is blank and the threshold. It's not perfect. It's not perfect. I actually wanted a test per device in the loop, but as soon as I hit failed or skipped or passed, it breaks the loop. So this might be a decent workaround. I'm getting 2 alerts, which is fantastic. And my logs, if you go to the log view, you can actually see the 2 tables with the failed and failed, or passed and failed, or whatever. So it's really treating every single interrogation as the pass failed. And the failed reason is going to say one or more of the devices moving forward. And then the check, when I run the check, let me change the message here too.
Today it might be cheaper, better, and there are more procedures on
One or more of the NXOS versions does not match the golden version. Okay, Now let me show you something real quick. I have to run upstairs. Actually, I'll record it separately for a video I'll post on YouTube. So now let's run the code one last time.
But vanity can come at a price when the surgery's a disaster.
And then I'm going to stop the video.
If the results are
So now the message should say one or more, right?
Plants are making them sick, and none on the glisten was so degraded.
One or more, and the failed result, and the two messages. Okay, well I'm going to wrap things up and make another quick little video. And thanks for joining, especially thanks for joining from Poland. I really appreciate it. And I'll talk to everybody soon. I'll be doing more streaming tomorrow night.
one woman's designer brown nightmare.
I literally have 4 eyebrows.
Scarge, that's exactly what I'm doing. The test, correct. The test is to verify that the version matches the version that we set. Right, so I have this threshold of 938. And if any, because I'm actually pulling from 2 different devices now, if one or both are not 938, send a notice to WebEx for that device. That's exactly what's happening. So have a good evening, everyone, and we'll see you very soon. I'll be back on tomorrow night. Take care.